how can BCBAs and SLPs work together in conjunction? Because the skill sets are very, very different. The speech pathologist is coming at it from a communication standpoint, and we're just, quite frankly, we're not trained to analyze that behavior and determine the ABCs of what's going on and how to prevent it. So how can BCBAs and SLPs work together in the beginning with kiddos?
My favorite thing to do whenever I get called in for, usually they're calling the behavior analyst or me. I was a consulting behavior analyst. So when I was getting the call for the school district, it was, we want an FBA.
Right.
Functional behavior assessment.
Right. And I've been asked to write FBAs, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how to do that. I mean, I can read it and I can fill out the box, but I don't know what I'm doing. And most speech pathologists are often put in that situation.
It's amazing to me that happens, but that's a legal carve out for schools because, most licensure for behavior analysts is available in almost all states now. And it falls within the scope of a behavior analyst to do that. So anyone who was doing an FBA outside of schools usually or state-run services would be practicing behavior analysis without a license. And so it is interesting to me that in some places they have distilled this down to a set of forms that people fill out that then guide you. It's plug and play. And, sometimes I guess if it's very straightforward, that's good enough. But what you're missing when you do that is what I said earlier, the skill deficits, the really looking at the environment. When I go in and do an FBA, and as a caveat, I will say this, I live in Mississippi and I had contracts with specific school districts. They knew what my work was and they knew what I was going to do, and everything was approved and all of that. There are states where, because of teacher unions and such, no one other than a principal can go into a classroom and collect data on a teacher. So what I'm about to tell you, I don't want anybody walking out of here saying that you can do that. You have to know what the laws are where you are.
In your state.
Your state, in your area. And not only that, but what the norms are within the culture of that school. You can't come in just, willy-nilly saying, I'm going to sit in your speech session, I'm going to sit in your OT session, I'm going to sit in your classroom, and I'm going to collect data, not on the kid, but you.
Right.
But that's exactly what I find most useful. When I go in, I'm serving the child, yes, and looking for what you call the ABCs of behavior. So what are the target behaviors that have been sent to me? Then I sit down with the person, whether it's the speech pathologist, whether it's the teacher, whether it's the OT, whoever it is, and I get it from them individually. Because 9 times out of 10, what bothers the speech person is not the same thing that bothers the teacher, and it's not the same thing that
bothers the OT. Right. Yeah. Because we're all working on very different things. The teacher's trying to teach them to read. I'm trying to teach them to communicate. The OT is trying to do fine motor stuff.
Well, yeah. And the OT may be working one-on-one. You may be working with a small group, and the teacher is trying to manage this behavior with a group of 30 kids at one time. And so all of those environments are different. The behavior are different. The function of the behavior is different. And so I really like to spend a lot of time talking to each individual and the child, if they're able, to tell me what's bothering you in general about working together with these folks or in these settings. What do you hate about math class? What makes this child's behavior make the rest of your work sacrificed? So getting that entire picture. And then I do what's called an ecological assessment embedded into the FBA, which is not only am I collecting data on how many times and under what conditions does this child, scream out in class or whatever it is, but things like how often is the teacher walking up and down the aisles? How often is the speech pathologist speaking in 3-sentence paragraphs, whereas this child probably can only follow 1 or 2 sentences at a time. Yeah. And, that's probably less likely to happen with the speech, but maybe with the teacher or maybe with the OT. How many demands per time period are being asked of this child? How many successes are they getting in each of those demands. So we're looking for things that build frustration. We're looking for things that are distracting. If we're just going to talk about speech right now, what else is going on in this environment that distracts the speech person from being able to implement what they're trying to do with this child? And are they accidentally reinforcing the behavior without knowing
without
it?
even knowing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, we're not trained.
Right.
We don't know what we're doing. We're just trying to get through our day and deal with this kid the best way that we can. And that's where the expert BCBA can come in. But I will tell you, in my experience, and I worked in Alabama, when we're told a BCBA, oh, this child has a BCBA, or we have a BCBA coming in to do the FBA or to observe, we don't get someone like you who is taking in the whole picture. More times than not, we're getting someone that's coming in and telling us, the teachers, the staff, what we're doing wrong. And I would say 9 times out of 10 that I've worked with a BCBA, I've been told, and I've heard other professionals be told, well, the reason he's doing it is because you did this, this, and this. Yeah. And it's not really taking into account, okay, well, that's okay. How can we fix that? But the child's still pinching and scratching and pulling hair and turning desks over. So now what do we do?